Hi, it's me Meg Ray, and I'm going to show you how I built Bowser's airship in Minecraft. Just to make it clear, there will be no tutorial for this as it is a very large build and took many hours to do. I will do my best to explain what I did or what I was thinking as I was building, but I am not very eloquent. Just to give you an idea of where I'm starting, I'm going to build Bowser's head that's mounted on the front of his ship. I hope you enjoy the video! So the first thing I did was to create a sphere out of stone to get the initial head shape. Once I had that, I started figuring out the placement of the nose and the eyes and the eyebrows, etc. And I only started working on half of the face because I could just copy it over later. Because the head is a statue, I wanted to keep it on the grayscale, which is why I used a combination of stone and concrete. Now I have half of the face looking like I want it, so all I have to do is copy and paste that to the other side and then it will be just about perfect. One thing I did need to do was to fix the inside of the mouth so it wasn't bulging from the sphere I created. Now that I have the head complete, I have a good basis of what size this is going to be, so I'm going to start working on the hull of the ship. So I'm kind of eyeballing it and trying to get the front angle to look right. I'm pasting in the head to kind of size it up next to what I'm building so I can see if it's going to be the right size or not, and making adjustments as needed. Now I'm just trying to figure out the 3D of this, trying to kind of make a wireframe for it, and starting to fill in the sides with a little bit of the detail that's going to be there. Now that I have the shape kind of looking how I want it, I'm going to start filling in the side, and once again I'm only filling in one half of this ship because I can just copy and paste this over and it will make it go twice as fast. Now I'm just filling in the sides based off of the framing that I originally created. It was easier to do the side of the ship by hand since I already had guides in place. In a way, I'm sort of connecting the dots. At this point, I'm just trying to get the rows in and trying to get the curve of the side right, and after that I can go back and add some detail. Once I had a shape I was happy with, I went back and added extra detail by cutting off the corners and curving all of the shapes. Now I need to add rows to the top, so I'm just going to use the same technique as before. And once again, cutting off the corners and adding extra detail to help the ship's shape look more natural. Now time for some touch-up work and smoothing over any blocky parts I see. Especially with this middle gray area, I wanted that to be more smooth, so I added extra details to that. The next step is to block out an area where the cannons will go on the side of the ship. They have to be perfectly square so I can fit a circle easily inside of them. After I make the edge of the cannon, I'm going to make a barrel for it, and it's not going to be super long, just long enough to where it looks like a cannon. And once I have the shape down, I'm going to copy and paste that to the other two holes. And now I'm going to create a false room that these cannons are coming out of, so they're not just coming out of this hole in the ship and just floating there. I initially tried wood for this, but the shadows weren't dark enough to make it look like it was a large area it was coming from. So I went from that to black concrete, which was looking a lot better, and made it look like they were coming out of a much larger space. Now I'm just creating the doors that would normally be closed, but since the cannons are poking out, these doors would be open. I have one final step I'm going to do before I copy and paste this to the other side. I'm just going to fill in all of the floor on the top. Now that that's done, we can copy and paste this whole thing over and voila! I have the same thing on both sides. Now I have a floating head on the front of the ship that I want to get in position. So I'm going to cut and paste that till it gets in the right place and get it mounted on the front of the ship. Now I can finish up the front part of the ship. I'm going to use a couple different types of wood to add extra contrast and so this isn't looking so flat. And we want to keep it curved just like the rest of the ship. Then I just need to copy and paste that over and it's complete. Now I'm going to add the bowsprit. And to be honest, I did not know what this was called until I just looked it up. So this is called the bowsprit. It's really straightforward. I just need to make it the right angle and the right width, and then I can just fill in the holes. Now we have a lot of work to do on the back of the ship, so I'm going to flatten out this area where a propeller will eventually go. Then I just need to fill in the sides of the rest of it. At first I was thinking that I would need this really kind of weird curving shape, but later on I realized that this wasn't working, but for now that's what it's going to look like. And then after making a hole where the propeller was going to go, I kind of got sidetracked and decided I'm going to redo the whole bottom side of this ship. And I'll just leave the other side like it is until I'm ready to copy over my propellers that I'm adding. Now I need to fill in all these holes, so building up walls where they need to go and filling in all the gaps. Now for the propeller, I'm just going to build out a circle shape, adding lots of detail with different types of concrete and stone. I had to move it down so I had more room for the propeller. These propellers are really oddly shaped, so after some experimenting I got them to where they looked halfway decent. Now I need to make the rudder for the ship and create a little hole for it to be in, so at least it looked like it had room to move. Some of the features on the back of the ship, when you're viewing from the back, I had to make up since I wasn't able to find any good references for me to build from. After going back and correcting that ugly curve shape I originally made, I copy and pasted the whole side over again, and now I have both of my propellers on either side. Now I have to work on the box-like structures that go around the ship, but before I do that, I just kind of mapped out where that corner would be, and then I started working on the side wall. This wall is really high and really curved, so I found out where the highest point would go, where the lowest point would go, and kind of worked my way curving it down. Now these walls are looking a little straight and a little blocky, so doing exactly what I did before, I'm going to go back and add extra layers to smooth it out and curve them. Now we can start working on the white trim, which includes these 3 scrolls. Once I have that done, I'm going to work on this other box down here that I initially started, and it's going to wrap around just a little bit. It is slightly curved, and it also has white trim and a white scroll on the side. This is my favorite part of this build, and that is these windows that are on the sides of the ship. and I think they just look really pretty and they really make this whole thing pop. I used a combination of blue stained glass and different clay and concrete for it, as well as some acacia fences. Using the same technique I did with the cannons, I also added a black concrete wall behind them so it looked like they were coming from a much larger room. Then adding these other windows at the top, they were fairly simpler, more square, and they were just using yellow concrete and terracotta. Now I'm going to repeat those window designs on a much smaller scale on the back. I'm not sure exactly how many there are in the back of the ship, so I'm just going to do 5, which means I only needed to create half of the middle one since the other half was going to get copied over. Now I'm going to do the cabin part of the ship, and it is layered in 3 different parts. Each layer is slightly curved in shape, but I'm only doing half of it, so it will look better once it's done, so I give it a slight curve. I'm also adding a staircase on the side, and I'm making it extra large so that it will match the proportions of the rest of the ship. Once I have the 3 tiers done and the middle staircase on the top, I made a couple of doorways that go into the cabin. I made sure that there was a slight hallway going back from the doorway, but I didn't make it go very far because I once again added a false backdrop with the black concrete. After copying and pasting that over, this ship is almost complete. Going to the back of the ship again, we have to create a second Bowser head. This one is going to be much smaller than the first one we made. His jaw is going to be open a lot more, and it wasn't necessary for me to use extra spheres or anything. It was really easy to do by hand. I did make sure to replace the blocks inside his mouth with black so it wasn't going to show red. One final thing to do, and that is the 3 masts with their giant propellers. I'm going to start off by just creating one entire one, and then I can just copy it over and tweak it as I need. So I'm going to pillar this up using a combination of wood and stone and some concrete in areas. I'm using the stone to represent the metal casings that go around it, and also using some birch wood as an accent. As I'm going up, I'm making sure to vary the widths of this whole mast because I don't want it to go just straight up. That would be rather boring. We want to add interest by making different sizes that go around. The propellers are rather interesting since they're kind of tilted at an angle and also slightly curved. I just created one the best of I can, and then I just copied it and flipped it over to the other side, and it was perfectly made that way. After making the crow's nest, I made the mast a little bit taller, adding a gray cap at the top. Now here comes the interesting part in duplicating this propeller. I have to try to not make them look exactly the same. And what I mean by that is I didn't want the propellers to be facing the exact same direction. I wanted it to look a little more realistic. So while selecting just the propeller portion, I rotated it about 10 degrees. While Minecraft does not like anything other than a right angle, this kind of messed up the propeller, so I just had to go back and fill in the holes, and it was really no problem. Now I'm copying and pasting the bottom portion of the mast and getting that the right length it needs to be, and fixing up all of those little extra rings around it. Okay, one more propeller to go. And it's the same process as before, but this one was a little bit tricky, so it took me a few tries to get it. But once I did get it, I finished off the mast, and I wanted this one to be angled a lot more than the others, so I rotated it enough to where it was facing the opposite direction and still at a different angle from the other two. And as you know, Minecraft hates anything other than a right angle, so it had a lot of holes that still needed to be filled in. After some final detailing, the ship is ready to set sail.